February 19, 1945. For 3 days, American battleships had pounded Iwo Jima. At 9:01 a.m., the first Marines hit the black volcanic beach, expecting the Japanese to open fire. But almost nothing happened. No mass charge, no wall of bullets, no defenders rushing the shoreline. Thousands of Marines kept coming ashore. For a moment it seemed the bombardment had worked. It hadn't. Beneath the ground they were walking on, roughly 21,000 Japanese defenders were still waiting, and the beach was getting more crowded by the minute. Iwo Jima was barely 8 square miles, about 750 miles from Japan. Its airfields made it strategically valuable. Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kuribayashi understood something crucial. He could not defeat the American fleet on the beach, so he would not try. Instead of sacrificing his army at the waterline, Kuribayashi turned the island itself into a weapon. Caves were expanded. Bunkers and guns vanished into volcanic terrain. Miles of tunnels linked positions underground. Guns were concealed and aimed at ground the Americans would have to cross. The order was simple. Wait. On the southeastern beaches, Marines of the 4th and 5th divisions pushed inland as landing craft delivered more men, vehicles, ammunition, and supplies. Still, much of the enemy remained invisible. Then the terrain began working against them. Loose volcanic ash swallowed boots. Wheels sank. Marines struggled up steep terraces while foxholes collapsed, as quickly as they could dig them. Behind them, the shoreline filled with men and equipment, exactly as the Japanese had planned. Then the silence ended. Mortars and artillery crashed into the congested beaches. Machine gun and rifle fire came from concealed positions that were difficult to locate. Marines searching for an enemy suddenly found themselves inside a prepared killing zone. Vehicles bogged down. Equipment clogged the shoreline. Men searched for the guns firing at them, and still the landing craft kept coming. There was no turning back. By nightfall, around 30,000 Marines were ashore. The 5th Marine Division had cut across the narrow southern part of the island, isolating Mount Suribachi, while the 4th pushed toward the airfields. On a map, the invasion was advancing. On Iwo Jima, the Americans had only entered the fortress. As darkness fell, Marines waited for the massive Japanese nighttime charge they had learned to fear elsewhere in the Pacific. Hours passed. It never came. Kuribayashi had forbidden the kind of attack that would waste his men in a single night. His defenders would remain hidden. The Marines would have to find them bunker by bunker, cave by cave, yard by yard. The first day had revealed the trap. The next days would reveal its scale, because the Marines were about to discover the most terrifying thing about Iwo Jima. The enemy was not simply in front of them. He was beneath them. February 20th, 1945. The Marines had survived the beach. Now they faced something worse. A bunker could be silenced past and suddenly begin firing again from behind them. A cave could look empty until another opening, connected underground, came alive. On Iwo Jima, taking ground did not mean controlling it, and every yard forward revealed another position. Kuribayashi had designed his defense for exactly this battle. Japanese troops fought from positions hidden in volcanic terrain. The Americans could destroy what they saw. The problem was everything they could not see. Marines crossed ground where almost every ridge could conceal another firing point. There was rarely a clean breakthrough. Only another bunker, another cave, another few yards. To the south stood Mount Suribachi. The Marines had isolated it on the first day, but defenders remained buried inside. For days, Americans fought toward its summit. Then on February 23rd, a Marine patrol reached the top. A small American flag went up. Later, a larger flag was raised, producing one of the most famous photographs of World War II. Ships sounded horns. Marines below saw the flag above Suribachi. For one extraordinary moment, it looked like victory. It wasn't even close. Most of Iwo Jima still lay ahead. Kuribayashi's strongest defenses stretched across the northern half of the island, and the Marines now had to attack directly into them. Ridges, ravines, and shattered volcanic rock turned the advance into a grinding fight. Japanese resistance was not collapsing. It was becoming harder to uproot. The 3rd Marine Division joined the attack. Tanks, engineers, and assault teams helped destroy positions, only to find more beyond them. Day after day, the line moved forward. Sometimes progress was measured in hundreds of yards. Kuribayashi had rejected the huge suicidal charges that had destroyed Japanese garrisons elsewhere. His men were expected to stay underground and force the Americans to come after them. The island had to be dismantled piece by piece. By early March, American forces had captured Iwo Jima's airfields and squeezed the surviving defenders toward the north. From offshore, the island could appear increasingly secure. On the ground, Marines knew better. Japanese troops still emerged from caves. Hidden positions still opened fire. Men who had expected a short battle were entering their third week. And somewhere inside the shrinking northern pocket was Kuribayashi. The Americans were running out of island to capture. The Japanese were running out of island to defend. Soon, thousands of exhausted men would be compressed into the final corner of Iwo Jima. There would be nowhere left to advance without meeting them, and nowhere left for the defenders to retreat. The battle was approaching its end, but its most desperate hours were still ahead. March 1945. The Marines had captured Suribachi. They had taken the airfields. They had pushed the Japanese into the shrinking northern end of Iwo Jima. The battle should have been almost over. Instead, some of its worst ground was still ahead. There was nowhere left for Kuribayashi's defenders to retreat, and that made every remaining cave, ridge, and ravine more dangerous. American forces pushed north through terrain scarred beyond recognition. Hill 382, the amphitheater in Turkey Knob, turned the advance into a contest for yards. A position could survive shelling, naval gunfire, and air attack, then open fire when Marines moved forward. So the Americans closed the distance. Flamethrowers, demolition charges, and armored vehicles were used against fortifications built into the earth. Marines climbed ridges only to discover another defensive position beyond them. The Japanese perimeter simply became smaller, and the cost kept rising. By March 16th, American commanders declared Iwo Jima secured, but the island was not silent. Japanese troops remained hidden in caves and tunnels, and isolated fighting continued. Kuribayashi himself had disappeared into the northern defenses. Then, before dawn on March 26th, the final shock came. Several hundred Japanese soldiers emerged near the northern end of the island and attacked American positions around Airfield No. 2. By morning, organized Japanese resistance on Iwo Jima was effectively finished. Kuribayashi's exact fate remains uncertain. What was certain was the price. After 36 days, nearly 7,000 Americans were dead and roughly 20,000 wounded. Of approximately 21,000 Japanese defenders, only a small fraction survived to be taken prisoner. The island had been captured, but victory looked nothing like the Marines who landed there had imagined. The volcanic landscape had been pulverized. Thousands of men who had stepped ashore on February 19th would never leave, and yet American aircraft soon began using Iwo Jima. Damaged B-29s made emergency landings there, giving the island a role in the final months of the war. But numbers alone cannot explain why Iwo Jima endured in American memory. It was the contradiction. A flag raised on a mountain looked like the ending. It wasn't. A declaration that the island was secured sounded like the ending. It wasn't. Even after weeks of bombardment and relentless advance, men were still emerging from beneath the ground. That was Iwo Jima, an island so small it could disappear on a map. Yet it consumed 36 days and tens of thousands of casualties. The Marines had come expecting to conquer 8 square miles of volcanic rock. Instead, they discovered a fortress beneath it, and Iwo Jima left them with a lesson the Pacific would soon make even more terrifying. If taking this tiny island cost this much, what would happen when American troops reached Japan itself?